Hello, I'm Adam,
And I'm Adrian.
and welcome to Cast from the Crypt. Today we are talking about Resident Evil Apocalypse, the sequel to 2002's Resident Evil film that we talked about last time.
Yes, came out in 2004, and this one is not directed by Paul W.S. Anderson like the first one. It was directed by Alexander Witt, but the screenplay was still written by Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yes, and he
And
produced it. He was a co-producer.
there you go. There you go. It shows that he wrote this movie, though.
Yeah. So I thought this movie, the first one was going to happen and all the ones afterwards were going to fall off hard and just be terrible. But honestly, this is kind of more of the same. I think I like the first one more. It isn't quite as good, but it's still great. I still really had a time watching this movie.
I think I enjoyed this one more,
Yeah, I
personally.
think that's fair. I mean,
Yeah.
the thing that didn't quite do it for me was Michelle Rodriguez isn't in it. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, that is true. It did miss there. But it does introduce a famous character from the Resident Evil video games. We have an actress, I'm not familiar with her. Her name's Sienna Guillory, playing Jill Valentine. So that's cool. If you're a fan of the video game series, I think that seeing Jill in the movie would be maybe a little rewarding, though I'm not sure if I love the way that she was played.
Yeah, and see, that's another thing I didn't like is Jill Valentine is a big name. She's from the games, and so fans, I assume, would have loved to see it. And I never play the games. Like we said, I'm not sure how Jill is in the games, but they, in this movie, seem to flaunt the fact that she's known. They make her like edgy badass who takes shit from no one, and it wears on you so quickly.
It does, and like every time they say her name, I know this isn't possible, but they like say it in bold.
Yeah, bold
Like,
and italics.
yeah, and italics. Jill Valentine is here, and it's like, okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, one of my favorite interactions, and this is uh getting off into the weeds a little bit, but it doesn't matter. One of my favorite interactions is pretty early in this movie. You have Jill, and she meets Alice. They have this meeting, and of course, you have a very popular woman from the video game franchise, and then you have Alice, who is
Oh.
specific to the films. And their first meeting is like one of the most edgy things. Jill sees her like doing her thing and killing a bunch of zombies, and she goes, "Who is that?" Or something to that
No, she goes.
effect. It's
She. It's this badass scene. She kills a bunch of zombies, and after the scene's over, Jill looks at her and she goes, "Who the fuck are you?"
oh, is that's what it is?
Yeah.
I guess I blacked out because it was so ridiculous.
Yeah, it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it was quite a bit. But those are the quirks that you watch these movies for, right? If you're in it thinking you're gonna get anything else, you might as well head home. Or exit your home if you're like us watching this at home.
Yes. Okay, well, without further ado, spoiler warning, and let's get into the plot.
Let's. Okay, so the last movie left off, not to get too far into it, but the last movie left off with Alice walking out of the underground facility, which was called the Hive, and she finds, unfortunately, that the world has, or at least the city, Raccoon City, has been taken over by zombies, that this outbreak is far more far reaching than just the underground facility. And that's how the first movie ends. And this one takes place directly after the first. It is a direct sequel. There isn't a big time skip, right? Like I'm
No,
pretty
it's
sure
it's
it picks
almost
up. Yeah.
immediate. Actually, this movie begins slightly before she escapes the facility. It's just before she actually leaves, and it's when the virus hits the city itself and escapes the facility.
Yeah. The Correct me if I'm wrong, but the first movie specifically ends with no, it's just her walking out into the city, right?
Yeah, and it's
Oh, never
destroyed
mind.
and everything. And at the beginning
Right.
of this movie, we see the destruction begin.
Right, right.
So, if you'll recall from the last movie, it ends with Alice and Matt, who is the only other surviving character at the end, being picked up by Umbrella corporate goons in hazmat suits and taken into quote unquote the Nemesis program. And then she wakes up in a hospital, presumably after they did a bunch of experiments to her and Matt. We don't know what happened to Matt, but a lot of that comes into play in this movie.
Yeah. We learned quite a bit about the Nemesis Project. Oh, wait, actually, I guess this movie is a lot more fan servicey than I had initially realized. There's a lot of fan favorites from the video games in this movie.
Yeah, we have Nemesis as well.
So Umbrella is sending teams all over Raccoon City to they start quarantining the entire city and evacuating folks that are important to their operation. Specifically, though, Umbrella employees with certain clearances. There, I didn't get all of their names, but the one that I did get is Dr. Charles Ashford. He is seemingly very, very important. They pick him up and he's really worried about his daughter. He tells them, my daughter, she's at school. And they tell him, just, we took care of it. And then they do a slam cut to her being pulled out of school. And then we proceed to see other folks getting taken out of their homes and loaded into cars, security vehicles.
Yes, and we see the car that his daughter is in get slammed by a semi. Don't we?
We do. And it reminded me immediately of Rush Hour.
I've not seen Rush Hour.
Oh, yeah. Like the entire beginning of Rush Hour is an important person's daughter being kidnapped.
Okay, well, there it is.
And I could not, well, what's the word I'm looking for? I could not negate the similarities.
Yes. In this movie, I think just after that, we cut to Jill, or what
Yeah.
we see Jill's room, her messy room, and she's got like a CB radio, and she's hearing the police officers talking about the chaos that's going on, and there's news stories about a wave of murders, and it's clearly like a horde of zombies, but the reporters are like, people keep killing each other and we don't know why, and like they don't seem to realize that they're zombies despite the fact that they're very clearly a zombie.
Well, maybe in this universe, zombies don't exist.
I mean, even if they don't, at a certain point, I think the animalistic and rotting look about these people might raise some questions. They just are like, I don't know why they're killing everybody, huh? Sure. And we see the inside of I guess the Raccoon City Police Department, and they're trying to arrest zombies. They have a bunch of zombies in handcuffs, and they're like, stop being unruly, and they're trying to get them into like cells, and they've handcuffed one to a bench next to a very important character that returns later. And while it's really stupid, it looks so dumb. They're trying to arrest zombies. Like, let that sink in.
Yeah, and there's just chaos erupting. There's no control whatsoever. And fortunately, Jill Valentine is there.
Yeah.
And she walks in, guns a-blazing, just starts putting them down, putting the zombies down in front of everybody at the precinct. And she immediately knows that they have to evacuate the city. Now, why she is so quick to action and seems to have some deeper understanding of what's going on, I don't really understand, though I appreciate it because they do set her up for success pretty early. You know she means business. Yeah. You know she's badass.
I have many questions though. First of all, they imply that she's like disgraced but not fired, and I what does
Yeah.
that even mean? But then she comes in and shoots everybody that they're trying to detain. So imagine you're working there. All right, there's a bunch of people being unruly, but you're trying to arrest all of them, and then a former officer walks in with 2 guns and shoots everybody, kills every single person there. And then you respond with just, Valentine, good to see you. Like, what was the logic of this scene? And then she goes, you have to shoot him in the head. Like,
Yeah. She's in tune with what's going on.
yeah, but how does she know that? Like, it took Michelle Rodriguez forever to figure out that they were even zombies, and then to figure out that you have to shoot him in the head. She just knew innately that they were zombies, and you have to shoot him in the head.
She'd done her reading.
I guess she did.
Uh,
And Michelle Rodriguez worked for Umbrella. This is just a cop.
Yeah, that's true. She's just Raccoon City PD. Directly after this scene, we get another scene with Alice. I actually was concerned because when they brought in Jill, I was like, wait, are they going to cut Alice from the plot somehow? Like, will she not be in this movie? But luckily, we have two dope protagonists. And Alice, we see her wake up in a hospital, and now she is effectively living out the end of the first movie, walking through a deserted area, looking through the city, looking for supplies. She tore out IVs and all sorts of things, instruments from her body. So she's really weak and battered as she is kind of meandering the streets.
Yeah, and I guess we'll cut back to Jill. I think she shows up at the gate. There's a giant, like, metal gate that I guess leads out of the city. The city is built like Arkham City. If you've ever played that game, there's a giant wall around the city and a giant metal gate that would like airtight seal shut anything and everything, so nothing could get in and out. And I don't know why they built the city this way or why everybody who lives in it thought that was okay. But they closed that gate and then everybody's trapped inside. And then there's an evil Austrian dude, because of course there is, at the top of the gate, and Umbrella has taken control of the city, and he says, leave the gate or we'll open fire. And Jill Valentine shows up and starts talking to this police officer friend of hers. I think his name is Kane.
Oh, I thought it was
There's a character named Kane. Kane is immediately the second person who goes, oh, Valentine, good to see you. And then immediately gets bit in the foot by a zombie. And of course, he's like Michelle Rodriguez in the fact that the rest of this movie we're going to deal with him slowly becoming a zombie. So I guess meanwhile, we go back to Dr. Ashford, you said his name was?
Yes.
Yes. So he's in like a tent or someplace, we don't really know. And he goes up to a computer, and once again, I love it. Just like in the other movie, we get to see some hacking.
God, and there's a lot. Like, I feel like they did even more of that wonky 2000s UI.
Yeah, they show you what he's doing instead of just a man banging on a keyboard. But what they show is ludicrous.
Yeah. And there are several instances in the first 15 minutes of this movie. They have like projected computer screens or UI in the SUVs as they're picking up every character. And it's like a way of giving you exposition. It's that very unique early 2000s hacking look.
Yeah, dumb.
It is.
Well, he hacks. First, he like tries a password and it doesn't work, and then immediately, like the computer says, like hacking mode engaged, and he types in another password and it works, and he somehow hacked it, and then he types in the name of his daughter, and a giant 3D model of the city is searched until there's a red glowing dot at the center of it, and we are to assume that's where his daughter is. And the logistics of what we saw there is baffling. Like he can track. You can just type a name of a person, and it will show you where they are in the city. And
yeah, he also uses it to get in contact with Alice.
yeah, it's so dumb. And then he like goes to look. He hacks into every like camera in the city and is looking around the streets through like street cams and can't find her. And then that's when we go back to Alice and Alice gets involved in the plot.
Yeah, that's the crossroads. So this team with Dr. Ashford is now trying to locate his daughter.
Okay, we get back to Alice at the end of the movie. She picks up that shotgun from the police car, and then a phone rings, and she picks it up, and it's Dr. Ashford, who has once again hacked into every single phone in the entire city, and he makes the ultimatum that he can get Alice out on a helicopter if she finds his daughter and brings his daughter to him. And that is now the goal for the rest of the movie. That's what all the characters are trying to do. Pretty simple, a fetch mission, if you will, but it works out. I'm sorry.
No, it's like what?
No, listen. Kane,
I got a little lost.
Major Kane is the Austrian villain of the movie. Valentine's friend is Peyton Wells. I'm looking at the cast list now. Sorry. Asterisk clarification. I apologize.
Oh, are you putting that out there for the record now?
Yeah, that's for the record.
Okay. Yeah, so we have our fetch mission, essentially. And that's when we see Umbrella first kind of dispatch their new program titled Nemesis. And of course, it's we knew exactly what they were going to do in the first movie when they talked about the Nemesis program, but it is the very famous Nemesis character from Resident Evil 2, I think, is the first instance. Resident Evil 2, the video game, I should say.
Yes. Not this movie. This is Resident Evil Apocalypse.
Yes. Simultaneously, or while that's happening, we go back to maybe my least favorite character in this entire movie. His name is LJ.
Please,
his name is the actor's name is Mike Epps. I am very familiar with Mike Epps. He's been in 1,000 comedies,
including this one.
Including this one. And he, of course, was freed by Jill Valentine in the precinct.
He was that guy I mentioned who was chained to that bench with that zombie woman.
Yes. And I want to go back to that because it's actually a pretty funny bit that they do. The zombie is trying to eat him, and he's freaking out, of course. So Jill puts a bullet in the zombie's head and then turns the gun on Mike Epps' character, on LJ. And he goes, "No, don't shoot me." And she shoots the cuff and it even had that like ka-ching noise when the bullet bounces off metal. It's very, very ridiculous. And this whole character is ridiculous. He's just around in this movie, right?
That's that's the best way to describe his role in this movie is just he's around.
Yeah.
For some reason.
He finds himself in the middle of like everything. So again, as I said, Nemesis has been dispatched to.
Well, first I'd like to. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Before he meets up with what you're talking about, we see LJ in a car, I guess, driving away, and there's some zombies wandering into the road, and he yells "GTA, motherfucker!" and he hits them with his car.
Yeah. And then he says, "How many points did I get?"
Yeah, and then he gets distracted by naked zombie strippers and crashes into a pole and has to run away on foot.
See, I wasn't sure in what order it happened because he does get distracted by the naked zombie strippers and is just staring.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and just proceeds to crash. This is when he stumbles into the firefight. I wasn't exactly sure
Yes.
of the order. But yeah, he just finds himself in the middle of a huge firefight with Nemesis and a bunch of STARS agents.
Yeah, STARS being Special Tactics and Rescue Squad that I guess the police department has for some reason. No other police department in the world has this, but they do because they're cool.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be SWAT.
Yeah, but they're
You know?
not.
Yeah, but it's STARS. This is another thing from the video games, of course. Excuse me. But anyway, Mike Epps is just wandering like a buffoon and finds himself in like a lot. Is it a drive-in movie theater? I was confused as to what it was.
Yeah, it was some sort of building. There's a guy
Yeah.
on top of the building, like behind
Right.
like a billboard sniping zombies.
Yeah, he's behind some sort of like marquee, or maybe that's not quite the word for it, but it's on top of the building. And he's killing zombies, and he gets Mike Epps in scope. And for a moment you think, oh, this is gonna happen. But no, he saves him, narrowly being eaten by some zombie behind him as he's trying to get into a car. So as that happens, Mike Epps panics. He runs into the building because there is refuge there. There are a bunch of armed STARS agents. And this is when we see Nemesis just start to stomp.
Well, first, I would like to dissect this scene.
Yeah.
He enters the building, and every STARS agent there points a gun at him. And immediately, this is when we see the problems with this character. He becomes the quick-witted, quippy black guy.
Yeah,
the token
he's
black guy.
supposed to be, honestly, yeah, and he's supposed to be like the comic relief, but none of it's funny.
Oh my god, yeah. Yeah.
None of it is funny at all.
Oh yeah. They point the guns at him, and he's like, "Could you get the guns out of my face?" And then they put I don't even know why they pointed the guns at him. And then one of them offers him a shotgun, and he goes, "Motherfucker, please. My shit is custom." And he pulls out 2 golden deagles.
Quoth the Raven.
Quoth the Raven. And I think from here on out, I immediately thought that like Paul W.S. Anderson watched The Chappelle Show once and was like, this is what black people are like. And he wrote this character down and thought he could do the same thing and put it in his movie. And this is what we get.
It is not well done.
It's bad.
Yeah, it's really not well done.
Handled roughly.
And then we get the moment we've been waiting for a movie and a half, or really a movie and a quarter at this point. Nemesis shows up, and he has he gets caught in the scope of the sniper. The sniper puts in some bullets, or shoots him with some bullets, and of course they do nothing. And Nemesis is of course this. The actor that plays him is actually 6'7", but I'm sure he's supposed to be much bigger than that. I think they want him to feel larger than that, even still. But he is this huge, mangled creature, ogre-esque, just abomination, and he's armed with an RPG and a chain gun. And the sniper shoots him like 2, maybe 3 times. Everybody in the building is watching in horror as he is completely unaffected. And the Nemesis, with his nasty little toothy maw, raises his RPG and just obliterates the sniper with the RPG. And this is when the carnage happens, and he just starts to target the Nemesis, or excuse me, the STARS agents. And you see that he can see who they are and the threat level that they pose through his eyes. He's been specifically engineered as a killing machine, and he just starts ripping through well, except Mike Epps, of course.
Yeah, he kills somehow by like the grace of God. LJ is not harmed. and what does he say? He like throws his guns down and puts his hand up and he says like respect or something.
Yeah. He goes respect. And then you see through Nemesis's eyes that the threat level goes down to no threat, and he just turns away.
Yes.
walks away from Mike Epps.
They do this thing where you see the Nemesis cam, and it's like a computer, but Nemesis is not a computer. He has eyes. He's organic. I don't understand this.
Well, he's
And
like a cyborg.
I mean, is he? I don't see any evidence of that besides this computer vision he has.
Yeah.
And then the Umbrella Corporation can see what he's doing from a computer elsewhere. So like they can see through his eyes, I guess, but once again, he just has normal eyes. They even it comes up later that he has normal human eyes. It's an element of the plot.
One human eye.
Well, I think the other one's like swollen shut.
Yeah, he's got like a growth on the other one, but he does have one baby blue human eye.
Well, how do they see through his eyes then?
I don't know.
They didn't think about it.
They didn't. They clearly didn't care. They just wanted us to see him rip through people with a chain gun.
Yeah, except LJ, which, by the way, he introduces himself to the rest of the character as he says, "My name's Lloyd Jefferson, but you can call me LJ on account of the informal circumstances."
That's exactly what he said. I was wondering what that line was. He's a charming man.
He cranks the charm up as much as he can throughout this whole movie.
Yeah, it's not Mike Epps' fault.
No.
It's really just the writing.
I blame Paul. I blame Paul Anderson.
I do too.
We go back to Jill Valentine. Her squad of her and Sergeant Wells, her friend who's been infected, and some random newswoman who I don't think they even name, but she's
Terry.
Terry, her name's Terry?
Terry, yeah.
Okay, well, they might as well not have named her.
I don't think they said it in the movie, but I looked it up.
Okay, well, there you go. They enter a cathedral, and there's a guy in there with a gun. He's like, "Y'all gotta get out. This is my hiding place." And they're like, "Calm down, dude. We can all fit in here." But then we find out something is amiss with it. Well, first they go to like search the place, and the scene is pointless, but I'm glad it's there. Jill opens the door to like the back of the cathedral and finds the priest with his sister that he's tied to a chair because she became a zombie, and he's feeding her meat. And it's like a plot you would see in The Walking Dead, like their loved one became infected and so they feed it. But this whole thing has happened for like maybe a day or two. So they try to do this thing like he's been feeding her, but it's only been like a day most. So whatever, it's poorly done. And he's like, "You gotta leave, please, just let me be with her." And then she breaks out of the chair and eats him, and she kills them both and goes back to the others and doesn't mention it. And it had nothing to do with anything, but throw it in there. Why not? Once again, this franchise, just every single thing you've seen in a zombie movie, they're going to do it again. You're going to see it one more time.
Yeah, it's true. There is, right after that sequence, though, a pretty cool shootout, like in the church, a scene that I really enjoyed. They bring back the liquors from the first movie.
Just one. Now there's 3 liquors instead of 1.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. There was only 1 in the first one. Yeah, in this one, there are 3 liquors, and they have a crazy interaction with them in the church. The priest is eaten. There's someone else is killed.
Yeah, the other rando that was in there gets eaten.
Yeah, there's some random dude that's killed. But ultimately, our team of Jill, the soldier, and Terry, they are saved last minute by who other than Alice?
Well, they like run off and they hide, and I think they're hiding in the confession booth, and they're like, "What are we gonna do?" And they like have a mirror, and they like are noticing that the liquors are like crawling around in the rafters of the church. And she's like, "What are we gonna do?" And he's like, "I don't know." And then he goes, "Let's go." And they just run out, guns blazing. Like, why were they even hiding?
Yeah.
His plan was to run at them with a gun. And they did. And just before they get eaten, like you said, Alice, in the most over the top way possible. If any reason, this movie should be your favorite over the first one, it's this scene. The big stained glass window behind the altar breaks, shatters, and Alice on a motorcycle comes flying in through the window with 2 guns, just letting loose on the lickers.
Yeah, and she is able to just like with extreme precision kill all of them while doing the most insane things. And they indicate that Alice is incapable of some inhuman things.
Clearly, from this scene.
Yeah, this scene, and then they proceed to double down on it later on.
Yeah. Well,
but
first she can somehow make motorcycles fly.
Yeah, she can make motorcycles fly. She herself can fly later on.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, basically, it's insane.
But she breaks through the window, kills the first licker when she comes in. Then she sends her motorcycle at another one, and then somehow the motorcycle hits it in a way that they fly up into the air, and I'm not exactly sure how that happened. But then she shoots the motorcycle and it explodes. And then she proceeds to just like shoot at the other licker. And every single time they show the licker, then they show her, then they show the licker, and every time they go back to her, she is holding a new gun. First she has 2 pistols, then she has 2 Uzis, then she has a shotgun, and you didn't see her with the other guns. She just produces them between shots.
I noticed that as well, and I really didn't care.
She pulls them out of her inventory.
Yeah, I did not care at all. It felt very much like a video game.
Yeah,
which I think is a success. In a way, you know.
Yeah, and then that's of course after she kills all the lickers. That's when Jill says, "Who the fuck are you?"
Yeah, it's one of the strongest moments in this movie. Unironically, like, or maybe a little ironically, but but it's really good.
Oh my god, that scene.
And it's such a fantastic reaction to someone just having saved you.
Yeah, no, right? Just because she's edgy.
Yeah. Perhaps edgier.
Yeah, and then we have 2 badass women trying to out-edge each other for the rest of the movie. So after this, I think they end up in a graveyard. And I mentioned this scene in the last episode. I misattributed it to the last movie. In this movie, they're in a graveyard. And of course, it's that classic, the zombies are rising from the graves. Once again, one more thing you've seen in a zombie movie. They're doing it again in this movie. And in this scene, just before the zombies come out of the ground, they talk about how Sergeant Wells is infected and he should kill himself now before he kills everybody else. And she begins to have memories come back from, I think it's in this scene, some memories begin to return to her. She realizes she's been experimented on, and throughout the rest of the movie, she keeps remembering things from when they were experimenting on her in the Nemesis program. And once again, I was like, they're doing the last movie again. Now she's remembering things again. She has amnesia again. Has to remember things again.
Too many memories.
I guess. And I was like, sure, do what you did last time again. Why not?
And though it was cool, just to go back a little bit, though it was cool, how did the zombies in the cemetery have the T-virus?
Oh, it made no sense. Yeah.
It literally just no sense.
Yeah, and when they rise from the ground, she starts like killing them with martial arts. Despite the fact that she has guns and seems to have the ability to pull guns out of thin air, yet she chooses the martial arts for this scene. She does not have to. She chooses to. Just, once again, just cause it's cool, cause it's a zombie movie.
After this, they go to the school, yeah?
They're on their way to the school, but before they get there, they find out Ashford's daughter is hiding in the school, but before they get to the school, they're crossing a bridge when they run into Nemesis.
Oh my god, you're right.
Yeah, she has this like sixth sense. She's realizing whatever they did to her has given her superpowers, basically. And she can sense something in the alley below the bridge, and she tells everybody else to run. And that's when they encounter Nemesis for the first time.
Yeah. But there's that whole bit where that I guess we just glossed over, that they find out that if the contamination is not under control, the city will be nuked.
Yeah. Ashford tells them that on the phone, that you have to get there in time because the city will be nuked by daybreak. And it's already pretty late at night. They're going to blow the city up. So once again, just like in the last movie, now they have a timer.
So Sergeant Wells has he's showing signs of weakness because he got sick from the virus, and that's what's happening simultaneously as Nemesis appears. That's the right character, right? I'm like,
yeah, that is the right character.
Okay, I'm just making sure. So ultimately, Alice is able to get away from the group. Again, Nemesis does kill Sergeant Wells, shoots him. But Alice gets away from the group and starts to fight him, but of course can do no damage, right? Or seemingly, she can do no damage to Nemesis. He's too strong. She's able to get him to some sort of market, like a store, and she tries to put up a fight against him, but she's just completely overpowered. He is incredibly OP, and she has to leave. We have a cut then to Jill and Terry, these two characters that we care about Jill, but Terry's just a rando. Reporter. Yeah. She's still being dragged along, and she's able to get into a car safely while Alice is fighting Nemesis. But this is when Wells reanimates and attacks Terry, unfortunately. And Jill has to kill Wells. And I think she's able to save Terry completely.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah. But they make their way to the school after this.
Yes. Well, meanwhile, while they're getting that car, Alice is still fighting Nemesis, and they make Nemesis out to be this huge, big, scary monster, but they give him a rocket launcher and a minigun. And I feel like if you give those two things to anyone, they will be unstoppable. But there's this scene where she tries to fight him for like a few seconds, and then she's like, I'm just going to run away, because he's clearly unstoppable. And as she's running away, she's like superhero jumping on the roofs of cars, and he shoots one with the rocket launcher, and she flies into the air, and you can see it, but you can practically see the wire that is holding up Milla Jovovich as she like kicks through the air like she's in a kung fu movie.
Yeah, it's so bad.
Yeah, I think this is what you meant earlier when you said she could fly.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about. She is she's playing real life Frogger, and she's jumping from car roof to car roof. And my favorite part, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but she doesn't have any superhuman strength, right?
I think she does. I think the experiment they gave her made her have super senses or super strength. I think that's the implication, but they're pretty vague about it, though. You're right.
Yeah, well, she's jumping from car roof to car roof, and she can't fight him one-on-one, okay? But she's able to see his RPG rocket leave the gun in slow motion, and she jumps off with just enough time.
Yeah. And that's when they end up in this building, and she escapes in I really do love this sequence just because, like, it is pretty creative the way she runs away. She shoots into the wall. She's just madly shooting with her machine gun into the wall. As she's running, she jumps into a slide and is on her back now. Nemesis shoots a rocket at her, and she flies through the part of the wall she'd been shooting at. It breaks away, and now she's escaped to the next room, so she doesn't get killed by the rocket. Then she finds a laundry chute that she jumps down, And on the way down the chute, she breaks her finger, we find out. And Nemesis shoots a rocket down the chute just as she reaches the bottom. And she flings the laundry cart she's in up. So the bottom gets hit with the rocket and she's fine. And this is the first of a million instances in this movie where the rocket slash fire physics make absolutely no sense. But she deflects the rocket with a laundry cart. And then,
yeah, there are a million instances in this movie where people should just be dead.
Yeah, absolutely. Alice should just be dead, or at least scathed.
Yeah, but she never is. Well, then again, maybe she is superhuman after all.
That's true. Well, in this fight versus Nemesis, she barely escapes with her life. And she is scathed, actually. Her pinky finger is broken.
It's broken. Yeah.
And she snaps it back into place and like breathes really heavy. Like she's just like holding the pain in like she's a badass. And like for all these zombie movies where someone gets a limb cut off or something like that happens, an arm dislocated, I feel like a broken pinky is like nothing.
I know. It took me aback too, because it's perhaps the most inconsequential injury.
Yeah.
It didn't even have to include it.
Yeah, if this was any other zombie movie, her finger would be gone.
Yeah. It blew me away that they would even include it. I laughed out loud.
It was pretty dumb. But,
small anecdote.
Yes.
It actually reminded me back in the day. You remember the show 24?
I remember it. I
didn't watch it.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it, but we would catch it because it would play right before some show. Maybe it was American Idol that we would watch as a family. And my dad would always comment on how like the guy had been through, I don't remember the actor's name, but he had been through 1,000 explosions. And at the end, he'd have like a nick on his cheek. And it reminded me of that sort of action movie writing or action program writing where the protagonist can go through the most inconceivable just atrocities. Like they can witness everything, explosions, gunfire, and leave with nothing. It's one of my favorite tropes.
I think you describe it best as action programming, not even a movie, not even good enough for a movie.
No, it's rough.
Yeah. Well, like you said, Jill gets that car, Alice meets back up with him, and they speed off to the school to find Ashford's daughter. And now that they're in the school, and like you said, on the way they pick up LJ. Thank God, right?
Yeah. What would we do without him?
I know. And now that they're in the school, they each take a floor to search. It's a very large school. I think they refer to it as like, I think it's just Raccoon City Elementary School. Like it's the only school, but it's like a massive like prep school.
Yeah, it's like the classic, uniforms and.
I know, and that absolutely is not just the public elementary school, but whatever. It's multi-floored, and they're all on a different floor, searching each floor for this little girl. Do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, we do get, in my opinion, a cooler moment in this movie because you have now introduced in this school a bunch of zombie children and dogs.
Yeah, they bring the dog. I don't even know where they got the dogs from.
I don't know where the dogs came from.
They show a canine, like a police car with a canine unit, and the like cages are destroyed, but it's absolutely the same dogs from last time. They're Dobermans.
Yeah.
Canine units are always German Shepherds, I feel like. So it's literally the same dogs from last time.
Yeah, I guess they just recycled the doggy actors and put them in here again. But with all these new this new fodder introduced, we see Jill, Terry, and LJ, my favorite trio. They split up, and we start following them a little bit as they're trying to find Dr. Ashford's daughter. LJ kind of gets lost while trying to look for her, but this is when he meets up with another character named Carlos, and they both recognize each other and start to look for Angela together. Carlos saves LJ from the zombie.
Yes. And we have absolutely neglected this character and this whole plot
Yes, we
point.
have. Both him and Nikolai. We've completely gone
They're
past.
that unmemorable.
They are.
They have
They are.
nothing. We do not care. We already had Alice. We had enough badasses, and now we have Jill Valentine. We have enough badasses. Then they try to introduce like this other stars squad with Carlos and Nikolai and his group, and we don't care. We have enough. We already have enough military slash cop slash gun toting badasses. We have more than enough. We don't care about Carlos. Sorry, Carlos. Sorry, Nikolai. Go
Yeah.
away.
So glossing over them, we have a more emotional moment. We cut to Terry, and she is, I mean, she's of course looking for Angela as well. And she finds a student, like a girl, and she thinks that she's Angela, but then she realizes that she is not. She is a zombie child, and she looks up and is unfortunately just surrounded by a fairly large group of zombie kids. Um, she she's armed, but she just cannot bring herself to shoot the children, despite the fact that they are not children. They are zombies now. And it ultimately leads to her demise because she's overwhelmed by the horde, bitten, and killed.
Yeah, and she's like we said, she's a reporter. She's been filming everything on her little hand camera this whole time, and she somehow gets eaten in such a way that she drops her camera in a way that it films her absolutely perfectly getting eaten by these zombie children, this crowd of zombie children, and the camera sees it all, and it's, you know.
Yeah, it's again very of the times.
Yeah.
You know, when there's a camera involved, it just perfectly seems to show the action of the movie.
Yes, and we see the action through the camera.
Yes, it's classic. It's something that terrible Halloween Resurrection movie did, and I think they came out around the same time. So it's very of the time. So Jill is able to finally reach the classroom where Angela is hiding. And this is when Jill finds Terry's camera and watches the footage and then sees that Terry was eaten. So she got the exact same view the audience got. It's super silly. But Jill starts to escort Angela to safety, at least to the best of her ability. And they, of course, run into zombies. See, for this movie, our first zombie dog that tries to tear into both of them. And then they don't really matter to us, but as Jill is prepping to fight this infected dog, Nikolai shows up and saves her from the zombies and the dog. And this is actually where he formally introduces himself to her and gives us a little exposition of, you know, how Major Kane kind of double-crossed him and left him for dead. And that's when he is attacked by a dog. Or maybe he didn't ever kill a dog, right?
He kills one of the dogs, and there are more.
That's when he is attacked by another dog. And he ultimately sacrifices himself to save Angela and Jill.
Yeah, he was there. He said some one-liner too. I don't remember what it was. And he acts like this badass and then immediately dies, which I'm so glad, because they showed him on the screen, and the first thing I thought was like, this man's accent is terrible. It's such a bad accent.
It's not good. I'm frankly glad that these characters don't get a lot of screen time.
Yeah. I'm glad he died. And then as this is happening, or LJ, who's looking for Angela as well, runs into Carlos, who at this point in the movie has also been bitten by a zombie and is slowly being infected. And what a power duo, LJ and Carlos.
I know, right? The team that no one wanted to see at all.
So Jill is with Angela, which is Dr. Ashford's daughter. They finally find her, but now they have to escape these dogs. And once again, they're doing like something they did in the last movie, but sure, go ahead. It was working. Keep it going. And in a pointless sequence, they Jill this time instead of Alice fights these dogs. They're in a kitchen. She turns on the gas, runs out, and lights a match and goes to throw it into the kitchen, but it goes out before it hits the ground. How is she gonna blow up the dogs now? Not to fear. Alice shows up. They run past her, and she classic. I don't even think she smokes, but she flicks a cigarette. And then she has a tarp with her. I suppose it's like a flame retardant blanket, and she turns around and the explosion happens around her, and then the fire goes away and she throws back the blanket, and she and the little girl are fine. Wow. Wow.
Action programming.
Amazing. Once
Action
again.
programming.
But now they have the little girl. They're all together, and the little girl just so happens to be sitting with a briefcase full of the antidote. So now Carlos gets cured. He doesn't have to worry about turning into a zombie now.
Yeah, he's absolutely fine. Which, I mean, to be fair, they did establish that there was an antidote in the previous movie. So it's not completely out of the blue. But it's a little silly.
And they explain that the reason she has the antidote. One thing we did not mention about Dr. Ashford is he is wheelchair bound, and we get some dialogue that implies she has the same degenerative muscle disease that he has, but he created the T virus so it could somehow make her stronger so she doesn't need a wheelchair. And I don't know how that translates to zombies, but I guess it does. Yeah.
You missed the mark.
And that's what they gave Alice. So Alice also isn't quote unquote infected with the T virus, but she doesn't turn into a zombie. It just makes her super strong.
Yeah. I will say that the writing in the second act isn't very good.
Absolutely. And earlier in the movie, they show her like responding to what they gave her, and it looks like a worm in her, like a giant worm is crawling under her skin. And then here they explain it as like she's just been infected with the T virus. And I don't know what that worm was then, and they never bring it up. So whatever.
Well, if you recall, they do show Matt with like later on when there's a reveal.
They do show clear, obvious.
Yeah, a very obvious reveal. They do show Matt with like worm-like things in his arm.
But what is that? They will not tell you. It's to look
the worm.
It's
the worm at the bottom of a tequila bottle.
It's the worm at the bottom of the T virus antidote.
Yeah. Okay. So there is a little bit more there, but the important bit, the really important bit, is that Dr. Ashford now has an extraction point for them to get out safely with his daughter. And that's where they have a helicopter waiting. It's at City Hall, on the rooftop of City Hall. The group does make it there. They're able to get to the rooftop, but that's when they are found by Major Kane. And Major Kane has, of course, found out about what Dr. Ashford is trying to do, and he is actually keeping him prisoner. It's a game changer for our party.
Yeah, Major Kane being the evil Austrian man who somehow is running the scene. This is when he reveals that Alice has been turned superhuman with the T virus, and also so has Nemesis. Nemesis is actually Matt from the last movie. Big surprise.
Yeah, we get this reveal. There is an entire battle where people are just watching them fight. I guess like respecting how well she can hold up against him. And she's able to push Nemesis into a huge spike. For a second, it kind of seems like maybe he's dying. We find out later he's not at all. He's fine. But this is when they make eye contact, and we get like a crazy close shot of Matt's little blue eye in the huge creature that is Nemesis. She starts to actually have visions about him, memories, I guess.
Yeah, she remembers more.
Yeah. And again, remembers more conveniently as she is, as she is like in the middle of a very important sequence, just like in the first movie. Major Kane orders Nemesis to kill her, but of course, since A, she just spared him seemingly, and B, he remembers her now, I guess. He starts taking out the Umbrella soldiers, and they start to fight against the Umbrella operatives.
Yeah, and here I once again, let's dissect the BS that we see in this scene.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, he forces her to fight him by saying he'll kill everybody else, and she's like, I don't believe you. And then he shoots Dr. Ashford, and he dies. And he's like, he was an important asset to us, but I killed him anyway. Do you think I care about your friends? I'll kill them all. And what? Why? He could have shot LJ, you know? He could have shot LJ, but he shot the person they wanted to live. The person he wanted to live is who he chose to shot. What?
I mean, I guess he was just showing how alpha Chad he was.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. What a flex. What a power move.
Yeah.
But then once again, is Nemesis a computer? They seem to control him up until this point where he just decides to have free will, and now he's mad again. He's a person, and he kills them anyway. And we see his human eye. Like I said, it's an important plot point at this part of the movie. He's not a robot. He never was a robot. I don't understand. And then we get a BS scene after this where a helicopter is chasing Alice with the gunfire, but she's outrunning the bullets because she's that cool. And Nemesis uses his rocket launcher one more time to shoot the helicopter, and then the debris of that helicopter crashes into him, and now he is dead, I assume.
Yeah, we don't know. We haven't seen the other entries in this franchise. But this is when Alice and her group are ultimately able to make their escape. Major Kane is in the helicopter with them. He gets on as they start to fly out.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Let me interrupt you real quick. As all this is happening, Major Kane is going to escape on the helicopter. And he goes, why haven't we taken off yet? And then from the pilot's seat, turns around, who else but L freaking J? And he says, because I normally drive a Cadillac.
Yeah, and he punches him in the face.
And punches him.
Alice throws him out. Mind you, they haven't taken off yet, right? They're just getting off of the ground. And he says something like along the lines, you could kill me, but it won't do much good. But she goes, it's a start. And leaves them to the zombies. And Dr. Ashford is actually the first zombie that's able to crawl to him and bite out his throat. We get a cathartic scene with Major Kane being torn apart.
Yeah. So now they're in the helicopter, they're flying away, and they seem to have escaped just in the nick of time, because now the nuke has dropped on the city, and it is exploding. But like LJ said, he normally drives a Cadillac. I guess he doesn't have the best control over the helicopter, and they start to crash. And in it, we get, I don't even know like what happens, but somehow a pole is going to impale Angela, and Alice jumps in front of it and gets impaled instead. And then crash, bang, cut to black.
Yeah, and then we get a time skip.
Yes.
There is a whole bit with the Umbrella employees, and they find the helicopter crash, and they talk about everybody. They kind of talk about Carlos and Jill and Terry, but the time skip that I think is probably most important is 3 weeks later.
Yeah. So when they find Alice, she's dead, Then we see like news footage of like it was covered up. They said it was a nuclear power plant exploded and that it was like just a Chernobyl thing and there weren't zombies and it was completely covered up. Then we see another secret underground Umbrella research facility. And Alice is in a Luke Skywalker tube. And she opens her eyes. She was dead and now she's alive.
Yeah, she's, being given oxygen in this like tube of liquid. And she wakes up and sees Jorah Mormont.
Jorah Mormont.
from Game of Thrones, but in this movie, he is Dr. Isaacs. And that's when he starts to ask her if she can hear him, and she kind of signs to him through the tube. But she once again is hit with a flood of memories, remembering what happened in Raccoon, which means the implication is that they've wiped her.
Well, she had died. She wakes up, they take her out of the tube, and he's like trying to teach her to write. He's like, "Can you write with a pen?" And she's like Frankenstein zombie brain, can't even like barely write with a pen. He asks her what her name is, and she really can't even speak. She's only just learned to say the word pen. And then a flash of memories come, and she says, "Yeah, I know my name. It's Alice." And she badass starts fighting everybody in the facility.
And she's doing it with one hand because the other hand is holding up her towel.
Yeah, because she's naked.
Yeah. And she breaks one of their arms, I think she throws Dr. Isaacs through glass.
Yeah. My personal favorite one was someone shoots her with a taser gun, and she pulls the taser, like darts out of her neck and throws it at the guy, and then he gets tased.
Yeah, it's so over the top and ridiculous. So I guess she does have to be pretty superhuman.
I mean, she's literally come back from the dead at this point, so yeah.
Yeah, you're right. This is when she pushes them through glass. She's fighting guards. It's a whole thing. And she's able to escape the facility. But as she goes through the front doors, there are, tens of Umbrella guards, and they're holding guns that are facing her. And they've all got their laser sights on her. But that's when Jill, Carlos, Angela, and LJ, they pull up. And they are all disguised as Umbrella employees. They're wearing Umbrella gear. And Carlos shows that there's some sort of order to take Alice. And so all the guards, they put down their weapons. Alice gets into the car. And then they do a cut to Dr. Isaacs. And he says, "Let them go." And that's when we see that Program Alice is activated.
Yeah.
And we get a small reveal. It's a close up of the irises or the retinas, I think, in Alice's eyes, and we see an Umbrella logo flash in her eyes.
Wow. Did this end, like, for me, this ending was the craziest part of the movie.
Yeah, it was pretty insane.
Because at first I was like, she forgot. She has amnesia for a third time. It's been 2 movies. Oh my God.
Yeah, and she's going to break out of it.
Yeah. This is, wow. How many times is she going to get amnesia and break out of a facility? And our squad was described as Umbrella employees. And I was like, really? LJ was too? Freaking LJ.
That's what shocked me, seeing LJ in Umbrella gear.
When I first watched this, the whole movie, I was like waiting for the moment they were going to kill off LJ. And no, he's part of the main group at the end of this movie. Freaking LJ. This implies, like, is he going to be a big name in the next movie?
There's no way. There's no way they keep Mike Epps in these.
They couldn't keep this bit up throughout this movie. How are they going to do it for the rest of the franchise?
Yeah, I don't know. But I'm sure we'll find out.
Oh, yeah. Which I would love to watch more of this franchise. That being said, this movie was so much fun that I would like. When we first talked about this movie, last episode we talked about this first movie, and I was shocked that it was like one of the highest grossing horror franchises of all time. But now I get why. At the end of each movie, you're like, I would happily watch another one. So
Yeah.
I get it. I get it now.
Yeah, it's honestly not difficult to understand. This is your classic popcorn movie flick. You know, this is what you pay money to go see on the big screen with friends. It's silly. It's not serious, but they are a good time. I have to.
It's a great movie to watch with friends.
Yeah. I own these on DVD, but I do know that you can get them on Hulu if you have TBS extension. It's very odd. But if you got that, then you can watch it there.
There you go. Shout out to 5 people that do. Did you watch this with anybody?
No.
Nah.
I watched
Your girlfriend didn't want to watch it with you?
No.
That's fair. I watched it with the comatose corpse of my father. I turned it on and he fell asleep with a beer in his hand.
That's awesome.
He never spilt it. So shout out.
Impressive.
It was about the whole movie.
Alice-like reflexes.
He does. Oh. Yeah.
But yeah, solid entry in the franchise.
Solid entry. I really thought that this franchise was gonna fall off, but it didn't. Didn't quite yet. So
I'm glad.
I'm waiting for the moment it does. Like I said, there's no possible way the 6th movie is any good. If there's 6 whole movies, they can't do it for that long. But that remains to be seen. It hasn't gotten terrible yet.
I mean, if you ask critics, they hate it. But
critics, this is a good bad movie, though.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't wait to watch more. I'm excited. I think the new movie has just come out.
Yeah, it came out on the 24th.
Yep, it is now the 28th as of recording. So I guess we'll have to give it a watch, won't we?
I think so.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me, Adrian.
Hey, thanks for letting me be here.
Thank you, Paul W.S. Anderson. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Goodbye.